Jesus and Thoth are the same person? Yeah, what's going on, party people? In the place to be, I go by the name of the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city, Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's popping? Happy Wednesday to each and every one. Of course, we gotta say what's up to the party people in the chat. We got Wawo on the check-in, all the way from down under. We got Bodega Lady D New, the queen of all mods. She's in the building, and of course, right after her, we got the king of all mods, the indelible, the incomparable Nate 2 D2 is in the building. And if you have not yet already, please like, share, and subscribe. Share this link. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell two more friends that it's him again. And if you like how it goes down with the BK, please show your support via PayPal. Or if you want to be a monthly supporter of BK, you can become a Patreon where you get an assortment of goodies to enhance your personal Bible study. And I am here with probably one of the sharpest tools in the UA shed, all the way from the other side of the Mason Dixon, giving us that southern hospitality, none other than M.J. Jackson. What's going on, sir?
Grace and peace to you, bro. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Just happy to be here. Choosing violence again. And yeah, so let's see what's up.
This is what we do. This is what we do. So, as if you are new to this channel, I am what's known as a urban apologist, and so is Mr. Jackson. And what we do is we defend the gospel against the critiques hurled towards black and brown Christians for the most part. And we tackle various different critiques, and this one's very interesting, and it comes from someone who's extremely popular on the internet. He's not usually associated with the conscious community per se, but he shares a lot of their beliefs and attacks on Christianity. And of course, I'm talking about none other than Billy Carson. So before we continue, MJ, I just what are your thoughts about Mr. Carson?
Well, I found out about Billy Carson through you.
Mm.
And when I looked at his stuff, he's very convincing. He kind of got this esoteric thing about him where he pushes these viewpoints with a lot of confidence. And basically, he's a more refined New Age Hotep, so to speak. He's
Right.
very, very refined. So
Right.
It's the same information that you would find on a on a side netter, but it's like it's just very well presented. He's a well-spoken brother.
I mean, it's kind of like if the conscious community was had more of an Anglo demographic, it would be Billy Carson. Even though Billy Carson is a black man, right? But his whole vibe is, he's not doing the dashikis. He's not, he's always in a three-piece suit with the shades, very polished dude, But there is some definite overlap between what he shares and teaches and what the conscious community likes to do when it comes to coming against the gospel. So he did a video about how somehow Jesus completely ripped off the emerald tablet of Thoth, right? Completely. It's like he just took the whole thing, right? So we're gonna look at a couple of clips, and we're gonna give our commentary, and we're gonna see if his claims hold any water. So, with that being said, you got that at the 16-minute mark, sir?
Yeah, it's about 59.
That's cool. So let it rip, bro.
Is not exactly what they thought it was. Okay. So, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. Let me read a couple of quotes here from some important people that actually reviewed this book We have Eric von Daniken. Eric von Daniken is a living legend. He's a great-grandfather of the ancient astronaut theory. He's traveled the world hundreds of times. His book has been translated. Chariots of the Gods has been translated into over 80 different languages, and he has over 80 million copies sold worldwide. He sparked a lot of brains when he came out with that in the late 60s. Sparked a lot of brains. Since then, he's been a multi-time best-selling author in many books regarding ancient civilizations and archaeology. The man is a living legend. And he said, I'm so impressed with your work and your research. It was a pleasure. Eric von Daniken, Chariots of the Gods.
All right.
And of course, you know, Jimmy Church today.
You can stop it there. So we're just going to start with who is co-signing his material, right? So what we're going to do is, so I took a screenshot of that page. I made it a little bigger so everybody could see. So you quote, I am so impressed with your work and your research. It was a pleasure. Eric von Daniken, best-selling author, Chariots of the Gods. All right. So this is somebody that he he calls him a living legend, right? So let's look a little bit into Mr. Daniken here. Eric von Daniken, a Swiss author of several books, which makes claims about extraterrestrial influences on early human culture, including the bestseller Chariots of the Gods, published in 1968. Van Daniken is one of the main figures responsible for popularizing the paleo contact and agent astronaut hypotheses. Chariots of the Gods was on the New York Times bestseller list and helped to launch Van Daniken's career as a public speaker. Van Daniken has sold 70 million copies of his books as of January 2017. That's a lot of books. A lot of books. And this is why we do what we do, because these guys have had such a great reach for years. 70 million copies, man. That's nothing to laugh at. Right? Wait, where am I? Okay. Wait, what's going on here? Okay. Soon after the publication of Chariots of the Gods, Van Daniken was accused of stealing the ideas of French author Robert Courreau. A 2004 article in Skeptic magazine states that Van Daniken plagiarized many of the book's concepts from The Morning of the Magicians. That this book, in turn, was heavily influenced by Cthulhu mythos, and that the core of the ancient astronaut theory originates in H.P. Lovecraft's stories, The Call of Cthulhu and At the Mountain of Madness. So the bulk of his stuff comes from some old science fiction novels of H.P. Lovecraft. This is where he's getting his information from. Okay, but let's continue though. This is from the book Frauds, Myths, and Mystery Science and Pseudoscience in Archaeology by Kenneth L. Feder. Now remember, right? This is a living legend. Billy Carson's talking about this guy as a living legend. So, well, actually, you know what? MJ, you can read this.
Yep. I don't mind if I do. Well, if you're thinking that, how about allowing Eric von Daniken to speak for himself on this point? In his book, Signs of the Gods, he asked the question, why are there different races anyway? Though denying he is a racialist, von Daniken reveals his eccentric perspective about race throughout that book. Keith Fitzpatrick compiled most of these statements and presented them on his Bad Archaeology website. Okay,
all right, so let's look at some of these quotes. Go ahead, bro.
Quote, was the black race a failure, and did the extraterrestrials change the genetic code by gene surgery and then program a white or yellow race?
All right, stop there. Remember, living legend. The living legend is saying that the black race, which will include Mr. Carson, was a failure and we needed a tune-up from E.T. Continue.
Quote, nearly all Negroes are musical. They have rhythm in their blood.
Wee.
End
In
quote.
their blood. Yes. Continue.
Quote, I quite understand that I'm playing with dynamite if I asked whether the extraterrestrials allotted specific tasks to the basic races from the very beginning, i.e., programmed them with special abilities. End quote. Quote, are there races which are obviously endowed with higher intelligence than others? End quote.
Right. Living legend. Daniken. He's not a racialist though. He's not a racist. But you know, all Negroes are musical. They have rhythm in their blood.
It's in the blood.
In their blood. Was the black race a failure?
Mm.
So we needed help from aliens from other worlds to get us together because we was just so jacked up. And then by doing so, that's how they made the white and yellow race because of course that's the upgrade, right? Living legend, this guy's calling him. We haven't even got into his stuff yet, but the people he's co-signing it's crazy. I mean, what are your thoughts, MJ?
Well, what I mean, this is quite funny. It reads kind of like some esoteric Charles Murray type bell curve type stuff. So we'll see what he says, but I mean, there's already red flags being raised in terms of some plagiarism. I mean, I thought I was reading the story of Jacob kind of in reverse.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. So, but let's continue though.
So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, man. It's wild. So here's another screenshot from his presentation. If you could read that for us, MJ.
All right. Still coming through good?
Yeah, you good.
Okay. The Book of the Dead recorded that the god Thoth was designer and builder of the Great Pyramid. These words were carved into stone at the very dawn of civilization on planet Earth. Elements of that same story also appear in pyramid texts that date to around 2450 BC and presented in a context that suggested their ancient age.
Right. So let's look into a little bit into the god Thoth. Right. Let's get to see what this guy's about. All right. Well, actually, here, so there's another screenshot from Billy Carson's presentation. So in his compendium of the Emerald tablets, mind you, don't get confused. There's two different versions of the Emerald tablets. There's the Emerald tablet, singular, that Hermes Trismegistus created. Then there's the Emerald tablets of Thoth the Atlantean, and that's actually the book Billy Carson's referencing. Okay, so patterned after the pyramid of Earth Force, burning eternally, so that it too might remain through the ages. In it, I builded my knowledge of magic science. Well, actually, before I even say that, it says here, and Thoth said, "Builded I the Great Pyramid." So this the Emerald Tablets claims that Thoth is the one that built the Great Pyramid, right? So let's look into some of the primary sources and let's get some data. And let's learn a little bit more about this god named Thoth, right? MJ, if you could be so kind.
In Egyptian mythology, Thoth held a position of great importance as the creator of writing and law, and as the god who oversaw the calendar and ordered the times and the seasons.
Right. So one of the first things we take note of that he is the creator of writing and law, right? Calendar, this is what he pretty much orders, right? Times and seasons. Let's see what else he does. Get MJ.
Thoth was credited with inventing the art of writing, and in his capacity, he was especially revered by the scribes of ancient Egypt. Because of this association with words and writing, Thoth was depicted as the recorder of human deeds, who stood with Anubis beside the scales that weighed human hearts after death in order to determine the soul's ultimate eternal fate. In other contexts, Thoth uses his skills with writing and his wisdom to function as a scribe, herald, and judge for the supreme god Ra, and the other deities.
All right. So we're learning a little bit more about his function within the pantheon, right? He is they say that he's the one that invented the art of writing, right? He's the recorder of human deeds. He's a herald, a scribe, and a judge, right? And actually you find him at the at towards the end of the Book of the Dead as being the recorder and judge, where the scales are with Anubis. Okay. The ancient Egyptian god Thoth is usually termed god of wisdom or scribal god or divine scribe, as well as lunar deity or divine vizier. Okay. Both the ibis headed man and the baboon are associated with Thoth's scribal role, whether it be that he records the results of the judgment after death, assigns a long reign to the king, inscribes the king's name on the ish tree, or that scribes represent themselves as being under the protection of the deity in the form of a baboon. Whereas Thoth, as an ibis headed man, is quite standard, the ape headed man, who presumably stands for Thoth, is rather exceptional, as in the judgment scene of the Theban coffin. And here we have some scenes here. This is judgment after death with the ibis headed Thoth recording the result. The vignette of spell 100, 125, Book of the Dead of Hunefer, Papyrus, London. So you see the arrows pointing to the ibis headed bird. That is Thoth recording the judgment scene. Okay. Here's another judgment scene, judgment after death, with Thoth as a squatting baboon atop the scale recording the result. Detailed from a mummy breastplate, 3rd to 1st century BCE. All right. So we see him doing the recording, being the scribe here. And this is one that we're probably more familiar with. This is the scene from the Book of the Dead of Ani, right? And again, the ibis bird, and he's writing, right, the judgment that's befalling Ani here. Then we have Thoth, Atum, and Seshat write the names of Ramesses II on the leaves of the Ish tree relief, in the hall of the Ramesseum, West Bank, Luxor. All right, so clearly we know that he's in the Book of the Dead, right? We know that he writes for kings. But the one thing that we haven't seen within the Book of the Dead is him building the pyramid. The, he doesn't write the Great Pyramid. He doesn't. He judges, he records, but he doesn't build the pyramid. The only source that says that he does, right, is actually, you know what? I kind of jumped the gun a little bit, but keep that in mind. Thoth does not allow for the establishment of such a mythological biography because there are highly contradictory sources pertaining to his coming into being, and none of them can be categorized as primary without reservation. Because remember, his argument is that Jesus completely ripped off Thoth. Well, we don't even know what Thoth his origin really is. There's too many competing to a point where it can't be primary without reservation. I'll let you read this one, MJ.
Yeah, Thoth is termed as having been autogeneously born, having no mother, but other sources describe him as a son of goddess Nut Neith Ratui, goddess of Emet, or an unspecific great one, or having emerged from the cranium of Seth after Seth had been impregnated with Horus semen. The Bub Attis tradition has it that Thoth is the child born from Seth's rape of Horus. Um, would that be Horus?
I think so.
Okay, who subsequently delivers into the water an egg later found as a baboon by Black Ibis.
So here you have these these competing origin stories. Now, do any of these iterations of Thoth sound like Jesus? No,
Oh,
nothing like Jesus. So again, where he's getting this idea from, I don't know. So again, right? The only what I was saying earlier, the only book that makes this claim that Thoth built the pyramid, the Great Pyramid, is in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean. So let me read the complete quote here. It says, "Then reveal I to him the great mysteries. Soon shall he follow to where I shall meet him. Even in the darkness of earth shall I meet him. I, Thoth, Lord of wisdom, meet him and hold him and dwell with him always. Built I the great pyramid, patterned after the pyramid of earth force, burning eternally so that it too might remain through the ages." Right? So how reliable is this particular book? Right? So one of the first things we're going to do is, well, this is Thoth the Atlantean, right? So did Atlantis even exist to begin with? Because if the location is not true, that kind of undercuts anything this book is talking about, right? So we're going to look at Faking History, Essays on Aliens, Atlantis, Monsters, and More by Jason Calavito. MJ, you could be so kind.
Yes, sir. In an article on the Legendary Times website carrying the official byline of the official Ancient Astronaut Research Organization, the Archaeology, Astronautics, and SETI Research Association, and therefore representing the official position of the premier Paleo SETI Research Society, Atlantis never existed, and there could not have been any Atlantis, i.e., a very advanced civilization comparable to ours. Either or else we would find traces of its infrastructure worldwide, not to mention the untenable theory of a geologically recently sunken continent.
Now, this is not Christian apologists saying this. This is not Christians saying this. This is the ancient alien society. These are people who are into this. They are saying Atlantis never existed. Okay, that's huge, right? The Greek philosopher Plato, who invented the continent as an allegorical way of criticizing the civilization of contemporary Athens. No evidence for Atlantis has been found in any ancient material, writings, inscriptions, pottery, etc., prior to Plato's dialogues, the Timnus and the Critias. There's nothing here. He made it up as for him to basically create a compelling argument as a critique for Athens. It's never existed. So how is thought from this place? You just can't be. Plato claims that his knowledge of Atlantis derives from an ancient Athenian statesman named Solon, who lived 3 centuries earlier and who got his information in turn from the Egyptians. If we take this at face value, we would need to prove a relationship between Egypt and the unnamed site prior to the age of Solon, and Egyptian knowledge of the site's layout, politics, internal organization, and destruction. We would also need to prove how and where Solon's information was retained and communicated for roughly 3 centuries between him and Plato. Needless to say, there is not a single scrap of evidence. No statue, no vase painting, no inscription, no papyrus fragment, no wall painting, nothing that indicates Egyptian or Greek knowledge of anything like Atlantis prior to 360 BCE. There's nothing, not even a hint, not even a whisper of any evidence of this place. MJ, can you continue?
What do we have to support claims for Atlantis? We have Plato's fictional dialogues and nothing else. The Egyptians who recorded interaction with ancient people ranging from the Minoans and the Mycenaeans um, to envoys from Near East are silent about Atlanteans. The Greeks included Atlantis in no myths, legends, or epics. Nearly every ancient city that was genuinely prominent in the Bronze Age has myths associated with it. Even if that city ceased to exist in the later ages, as Martin Nielsen explained in his classic, the Mycenaean origins of Greek mythology back in 1932. But somehow Atlantis got left out.
Right. There's no proof. Zip, zilch. And there's no proof because basically Plato used this as a rhetorical device. There is no Atlantis. So this emerald tablet that comes from this god of Atlantis, there's no Atlantis, right? It's just no Atlantis.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah,
just
yeah.
quickly, it
Mhm.
kind of reminds me of what Derek Bell was doing with his space traders, right? You got a lot of Christians who make fun of Derek Bell, and that's the godfather of CRT, because he was criticizing America using a fictional story about America. It was a fictional story where space traders were wanting to, um, basically take blacks as a commodity and things like that. So Derek Bell is kind of doing something similar to what Plato did when he was critiquing a certain uh, institution, so to
Mhm.
speak. So I mean that's not foreign.
Right.
Yep.
But what is foreign is the Thoth from the Book of the Dead. And before we get into it, special guest star in the building, we got DMG. What's going on, sir?
What's going on, bro?
Chilling, man, chilling. For those who are not familiar with DMG, um, at one point he was my arch nemesis, and he was part of the conscious community, and he is now a part of the body of Christ. So welcome, DMG, and it was last minute. It was literally last minute. I figured, let me throw this link at him, have him come hang out with us a little bit. So what's going on, DMG? Can't hear you,
Oh
bro.
man, not much, not much. I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be here. I just knew you was gonna give me grief and make fun of my long shower, but you didn't. So
No, we good. You
shout
good,
out,
fam.
shout out.
So real quick, are you familiar with Mr. Billy Carson?
Unfortunately, I am.
Okay,
He he
okay.
he is a quintessential pseudo aficionado.
There you go. Actually, yeah, I stand corrected by Michelle. You're not my arch nemesis. There's another individual has that title.
I thought Shaka was your arch nemesis.
Well, according to him,
I
I was his
thought
close
it, I
personal
thought it
friend.
was Jabari. I thought
Yeah,
it was
no,
Jabari.
it's
So
now
you know
Michelle
what? I
got it.
think you
Michelle.
like. You know how Spider-Man, I'm a comic book nerd. You know how Spider-Man have several arch nemesis. I think that's how you
Yeah,
were. You got
I
Doctor.
have a rogues gallery. I have a rogues gallery
There
of
you
rogues.
go. You got a rogues gallery.
Yeah, man. So we just get into Billy Carson and his claim that Jesus is a complete ripoff of Thoth, the Atlantean, and we just finished talking about how that's kind of hard since Atlantis actually never existed ever, right? But there's another thing here, right? Because there's the Thoth of the ancient Near East, and there's the Thoth of Atlantis, right? So the Thoth of actual Kemet, right? According to Spell 175a of the Book of the Dead, a dialogue between the solar creator, here named Atum, and Thoth is preserved and best understood in the context of the myth of the celestial cow. Atum complains about the rebels and asks the advice of Thoth, who promises to solve the problem and introduces mortality to mankind. Right? So Atum is having beef with these humans, and he goes to Thoth, and Thoth is like, I know how to fix these dudes. We're gonna give them mortality, which means they're not gonna last forever. These guys are going to die. This is how we get rid of them, right? But when you look at the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean, MJ, can you read that for us?
Yeah. Drift with the sound to the place of thy longing, free from the bondage of flesh by thy will. Hear ye while I give the greatest of secrets, how ye may enter the halls of amity. Amity. Enter the place of the immortals as I did. Stand before the lords in their places.
Right, the same guy that puts mortality on humans now offers immortality. Very interesting, right? So this can't be the same Thoth, right? Now, if the Atlantis claim wasn't so crazy, we got to talk about how the Emerald Tablets of Thoth came into being in the first place. All right. So, DMG, could you be so inclined to read this for us?
Yes, sir. So Dr. Maurice, is that
Doreal.
Doreal?
Doreal, yeah.
Doreal. Okay, you want me to start there or start at
You can start by the Brotherhood.
he claimed? Okay. Dr. Maurice Doreal. What was that?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. So Dr. Maurice or just Doreal and published The Brotherhood of the White Temple, neatly typed, crudely stenciled, mimeographed on cheap paper and stapled together, began to appear soon after. Doreal's The Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean also debuted about this time. He claimed that he'd simply transcribed the work as he channeled the denizens of Atlantis. In appearance, it was about as impressive as all of Doreal's other early works, though it's written in a far more enigmatic style, one that has gained some popularity on occult and metaphysical websites and forums.
Right. So let's grant that Mr. Doreal here, Dr. Doreal, has the ability to channel, right? That other spirits and entities can enter him so he can write these things. These particular Dentians are from Atlantis. We just shown that Atlantis has never existed. So who are these people talking to this man's ear? It's just right. But
Man,
let's continue. Let's continue. Uh, an even more significant Mount Shasta seeker was Maurice Doreal, also known as Claude Dawkins. Mr. Doreal, as he preferred to be called, founded the Brotherhood of the White Temple in Denver in about 1930. Remember, this is the guy that wrote the Emerald Tablets, right? 1930. He claimed that he was lecturing in Los Angeles in 1931, the year after Billiard's experiences. He met two Atlanteans, two, who transported him to a gigantic cavern 12 miles beneath Shasta. Unlike Ballard, who concentrated more on teachings than on subterranean locations, Doreal subsequently developed an elaborate inner Earth cosmology, including descriptions of underground races gleaned from the testimony of Atlanteans. Fearful of nuclear attack, he relocated the Brotherhood to a rock-bound valley west of Sedalia, Colorado, in the late 1940s and early 1950s. Doreal achieved local notoriety with a prediction that a nuclear war would occur in 1953, from which he expected to be protected by the mountain walls that surrounded his community. So he met these Atlanteans and helped him show this underground labyrinth, and he moved because he already had like this esoteric group, this cult. Moves the cult here because of a prediction that a nuclear war would occur in 1953. Obviously, that didn't happen. So these Atlanteans are playing this dude because they're feeding him false information, right? It's kind of like what Drake's talking about with Kendrick, right? They're feeding him false information. So it's man, this is crazy. But let me stop for a minute. So what do you guys think about this thus far?
Sound like old boy was on acid when he was doing all this. That's either that or what Rick James had. In Mormonism, we find something similar where Joseph Smith is said to have these tablets,
Right.
and I think when he put these tablets in his hat or something like that, the angel Moroni gave him revelation, and it sounds awfully familiar with the Mormon cult. So
Right. No. Yeah. Um and it always leads to Egypt. Yeah, DMG.
Yeah.
Now, for me, it just because there's people that actually like follow this stuff and believe in it, and they tell us we crazy for believing in Christ, and that's what's really like bugging me out right now. That people that believe this stuff tell us we crazy for believing in Christ, like we out of our mind.
Right.
But
Right.
like what we believe is so impossible, but they believe this stuff.
Yeah.
I like remember I used to work at General Motors, the plant in Arlington, and there was a brother that I was talking to. He was part of Conscious Communities, and we began to talk about the origins of the Earth, and so he was kind of pressing me on creation and things like that. And I said, okay, great. I don't mind answering your questions, but okay, how do you think all of this came to be? And he was like, you might not be ready for this. Extraterrestrials.
Wow.
I just started laughing. I said, dude, okay, so I can push the question back a little bit further. Okay, they extraterrestrials. What created them?
Yep.
I mean, even if that's what you believe, if they're contingent beings,
right,
they got to also have a creator too. We can keep pushing this thing back, but
right.
My beliefs are not as absurd. That's why you told me to hold my breath when you told me ET is how we got here.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
It was funny.
But let's continue. So this is from the occult world.
It's heavy, and the
Yeah, go ahead.
The passion that they.
You're freezing up, D. You're freezing up.
I'm almost.
Can't hear you, bro. You're freezing up. Now you stuck. All right. You might have to come in, come back out, D.
I wanted to hear what that brother had to say.
All right, good. All right, we got you now. Say it again, D.
Oh man.
Oh, he's out. He's gonna come back in. All right. So don't forget what you said, D. So the occult world, Christopher Partridge, the Emerald Tablets, a text attributed to Thoth, a priest king of the sunken realm of Atlantis. The tablets had supposedly been translated by Maurice Doreal, who claimed to have gotten it from the Great Pyramid in Egypt in 1925. Right? So, interesting. Now, let's talk about manuscript evidence for a minute.
All right, here we go.
Right? In fact, MJ, please, if you have the honors, go ahead.
The earliest and most famous Greek New Testament manuscript is the Ryland Papyrus, P52, currently on display at the John Rylands University Library in Manchester, UK. It was purchased in 1920 by Bernard Grenfell on the Egyptian antiquities market. However, it wasn't really discovered until 1934 when it was translated by C.H. Roberts. Three of the leading papyrologists in Europe to whom Roberts sent photos of the fragment too dated it from AD 100 to 150, although most scholars today will use a wider date range of the 2nd century in general.
Right. So remember, right? So he discovers this, or he translates this, right? 1925, early 1900s. The earliest manuscript about Jesus is 2nd century. But somehow Jesus went into the future and copied the Emerald tablets and then traveled back. Mind you, he's copying from something from a place that didn't exist to begin with, Atlantis. I really? Right? 'Cause that's basically what had to happen. Jesus, who was in the 1st century, went into the 1900s, found the Emerald tablets translated by Doreal, liked what he saw, went back to the 1st century, and just did what Thoth did from a place that didn't exist. I'm saying, I mean, you know. But it's not just P52 though, right? And we see manuscript evidence for ancient writings. You know, there's over 24,000 manuscripts of the New Testament, more than any other of the other more well, quote unquote famous ancient texts, right? Caesar, Plato, Tacitus, Suetonius, Homer, right? And they're much closer to the original manuscripts as well. But we're supposed to believe that something that got translated in the 1900s somehow is much more ancient than the manuscript evidence. And remember, it comes from Atlantis that did not exist. It was an allegorical, rhetorical device from Plato. That's all it was. Right? But let's continue though. Actually, you know what? I need you now, MJ. We're gonna go back to the video, and I'm gonna need you to go to the 26 20-minute mark.
26:20.
Yep.
How do we know about? Pretty interesting. Now, he was a virgin birth. How do we know about the time he spent in Egypt? Well, there's this book called The Gospel of the Holy 12, and I have these gospels as well. They're very little known, hard to find gospel. The Gospel of the Holy 12. I'll put it on the screen right there. The Gospel of the Holy 12 by S.G.J. Auskley. Now, what's interesting is these scriptures were omitted from the Bible. In other words, these verses, they were left out. It tells you of Jesus, where he was and where he went when he disappeared from the biblical text at the age of 12 to 32. He went to Egypt to learn what? The Egyptian mysteries. From who?
There. You can stop there.
Who was the original creator of the mystery schools?
He getting in his Phil Valentine bag.
Right. So, according to the Gospel of the 12, right, Jesus gets his information from Thoth at this point, right? So, you know what I always find interesting is every time they talk about how something got omitted from the Bible. So I'm assuming they have the original version, and that's how they know that things were missing.
They got it.
I would love to see those manuscripts. You know what I mean? It's like that must be an amazing manuscript. It has all the quote unquote missing text.
It was in the Vatican.
Always. It's always in the Vatican. Always.
It was in the Vatican, bro. A lot of secrets down there that they don't want us to know about, us black people to know about.
I mean, some of that might be true. Some of that might be true. You know, it's like there are some conspiracies. You know, the whole idea of groups of people who want to hide things from other groups of people have been happening since time immemorial.
When we get a black pope, we're gonna find out what's down.
Find out when Pope Leroy shows up. When Pope Leroy Jenkins the first.
Reparations coming from Catholic Church too. By
there
the way.
You go. There you go.
All right.
I like how that sounds. All right, so let's talk about this Gospel of the Holy 12 here. All right, here we go. All right, so a similar tactic was taken by Gideon Jasper O'Salley. O'Salley served as an Anglican clergyman for about 10 years before leaving the church. He was a vegetarian and had strong interest in the occult, theosophy, animal welfare, and anti-vivisectionism. Wow. Don't know what that word means. It appears that O'Salley created the Gospel of the Holy 12 in support of animal welfare and vegetarianism. Every reference in the canonical Gospels to meat eating has been altered. For example, the father of the prodigal son says, "Bring hither the best ripe fruits, and the bread and the oil and the wine," instead of get the fattened calf and kill it. All right, this is from "Is God a Vegetarian? Christianity, Vegetarianism, and Animal Rights" by Richard Allen Young. And Jesus fed the multitude with 6 loaves and 7 clusters of grapes rather than bread and fish. Remember, these are missing scriptures, according to Billy Carson. The Gospel of the Holy 12 also depicts Jesus as giving the 12 commandments to replace the 10 commandments given by Moses. The third commandment forbids the eating of flesh. Jesus then remarks, quote, "Verily I say unto you, they who believe and obey this law, the 12 commandments, shall be saved, and they who know and obey it not shall be lost." Since the peculiar readings lack manuscript support and are sometimes anachronistic, scholars conclude that it too is a forgery. This is not missing scriptures. It's a guy who had a axe to grind and wanted people to, he retrofitted his vegetarianism into the Gospels. So I'm like, I don't understand.
Ah, man, this is well, at least I see. I was under the impression that this was something that was just happening in our community with my Israelite brothers, but I'm glad to see that this not just it's not just us. So, I feel a little bit better, and when I have conversations with my brother Captain K, I don't have to look at him sideways as much when he says certain things because it's not just us. I don't have to feel a way about Commanding General Yohana as much as I normally would. So at least I'm getting this out of that. But people really be twisting the Bible like that's, and I guess they've been doing it from the beginning though. When we really think about it,
Uh-huh.
but before I fell off, I was gonna say the passion that people have for this type of information. It's like it almost make me envious because if we had that same kind of passion for the biblical text, we'll be unstoppable
Mm.
because they are fervent with
Hmm.
with pseudo information to the point where they have the masses, and I ain't gonna say the masses, but they have a lot of people thinking our information is pseudo. And the reason I can speak to it, as BK alluded to, I was one of these people not too long ago. So it's crazy how you really get their hooks into you,
Hmm.
and then you start repeating the same rhetoric, and then hopefully the light bulb go off like it did with me. But if you're not careful, you'll start regurgitating that same garbage, and it's dangerous.
Yep. Yep. Facts. MJ?
Yeah, Billy is a good capitalist, man, because there's a market. Like seriously, there's a market for this type of stuff. And you know, I think part of it, if you start making money putting out this type of information, I think that adds another dimension to the deception. Because let's say you are confronted with contradictions and evidence that supports the truth of Christianity. Now you gotta like battle the deception of wealth, and there's nothing wrong with wealth. But once again, when you have a market for bull crap and you a BS salesman, like that's something else to deal with. So yeah, we gotta pray for this brother.
Mm. Yep. Yep. So let's go to Dr. M says here that Carlson is starting to infiltrate high school students. All the more reason for us to push back on these claims. You know, absolutely. So,
Yeah,
all right.
youth ministry's got to take it to another level. So, to DMG's point, it's time for us to step our game up. We can't just be having pizza parties. We got to start having these hard conversations before we send these kids off to the military to because TikTok. Well, I mean, did they ban TikTok? Because TikTok was getting some folks.
Yeah,
My nieces and nephews were kind of in that agnostic phase for a second. I'm like, you really about to lose your mind over a 30-second TikTok video. Okay, if that's how you think this works. But
yeah,
by God's grace. But yeah, we gotta step our game up with the youth. They can handle it. They
absolutely.
can handle the information.
Facts.
Billy Carson thinks that they can handle his information. Why are we scared?
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
True
And,
indeed.
and one thing, if I may, BK,
Yeah.
and I'm guilty of this, or I should say I feel guilty for this. When you indulge in this type of information that tries to invalidate the gospel, it has repercussions. Even when you wake up from the nonsense, you have to be responsible for the people who you affected in your family, friendships, things like that. Because what I'm experiencing now is, okay, now that I'm back in the fold, I have people who I influenced, people who trusted me, felt what I said, had weight to it, who are now still on the other side of the fence based on things I said to them.
Wow.
And so now I'm having conversations to try to get them to see the light. And they like, wait a minute, you the one told me this. And so, and that's another thing that you have to be careful about indulging this type of information and rhetoric. And like the brother was saying, kids go to college, kids go off to the military. When they go out into the world, if you don't arm them properly, when they come home, you end up having some difficult conversations, and they affect the other people in their generation with that same rhetoric. And you start this process, the same thing I'm dealing with now, if you're not careful. So I just wanted to make sure I spoke on that.
No, that was great. I appreciate your vulnerability, and God's grace is sufficient. So I don't want you to feel like, man, I'm this horrible person. Like, you, at that point, you thought you was doing the right thing. You know what I mean? So, and just like you came over, as long as they have breath in their lungs and Christ has a return, they could come over too. You know what I mean? So, but with that, let's continue. MJ, if you can go to the 27-minute mark.
Tells you of Jesus, where he was and where he went when he disappeared from the biblical text at the age of 12 to 32. He went to Egypt to learn what? The Egyptian mysteries. From who? Who was the original creator of the mystery schools? Thoth, the Atlantean priest king. This could be why, when you see as I go through this, his words are extremely similar to those words of Thoth written in what? In the Emerald Tablets, the same words that are recorded by him as him speaking in the New Testament of the Bible. Pretty interesting. He then leaves out of Egypt as he gets a little older, and he goes up into Tibet. What does he go to Tibet to do? He goes to learn Reiki healing and Qigong healing with his hands and his body, and energetic, how to move energy throughout the body, which is confirmed by the Dalai Lama. In modern times, the newest Dalai Lama has confirmed this. And then he heads down into India to learn the mystic arts and teaching reincarnation all the way back down into Egypt.
You stop
then
there.
At the age of 32,
he went to Kamartaj.
He got himself a sling ring, right? He's able.
He was down there with Wong.
He's down there with. But he cracked the code. If you want to know what happened to the missing years of Jesus and when he was a youngster, now we know. He became Doctor Strange, basically.
Yep. Yep.
Well, so
the mystic arts.
Right. But okay, the question now is, where is he getting that material from? Right? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because DMG, if you could be so kind to read that for us.
The claim that Jesus was in India was first brought up by a 19th century adventurer and Russian Jew, Nicholas Natovich, who accidentally broke his leg and accidentally found refuge in a Buddhist monastery, 1894. He accidentally saw manuscripts telling the above claims. He wrote in his book, The Unknown Life of Jesus Christ, a century later. Holger Kirkstein received the light and wrote the book, Jesus Lived in India.
Right. So this is where we get this claim from, right? So the refutation by J. Archibald Douglas, right? Archibald Douglas, professor at Government College in Agra, India, took a 3-month vacation from the college and retraced Notovich's steps at the Hemis Monastery. He published an account of his journey in the 19th century, June 1895, the bulk of which reproduced an interview with the chief lama of the monastery. The lama said he had been chief lama for 15 years, which means he would have been chief lama during Notovich's alleged visit. The lama asserted that during these 15 years, no European with a broken leg had ever sought refuge at the monastery. So Mr. Douglas took it upon himself. He took a vacation from college, fam. He's like, I gotta find this out to see if it's true. Went to the monastery and interviewed the lama. He's like, nah, we don't know who you're talking about, fam.
The lama said he's a lie.
You know? When asked if he was aware of any book in any Buddhist monastery in Tibet pertaining to the life of Isa, which is, Jesus, he said, quote, I have never heard of a manuscript which mentions the name of Isa. And it is my firm and honest belief that none such exists. I have inquired of our principal lamas, and other monasteries of Tibet, and they are not acquainted with any books or manuscripts which mention the name of Isa. When portions of Notovich's book were read to the lama, he responded, quote, lies, lies, lies. Nothing but lies. The interview was written down and witnessed by the lama, Douglas, and the interpreter, and on June 3rd, 1895, was stamped with the official seal of the lama. The credibility of the life of Saint Isa was unquestionably damaged by Douglas' investigation. The man went to the monastery, asked the lama himself. And he's like, you bugging. Ain't no white boy here talking about no Jesus.
He ain't get up in here.
I hear, sir.
That's what he said. We ain't let him in.
Then it continues here. Mueller then wrote to the chief lama at Hemis and received that reply that no Westerner, forget Notovich, forget him, no Westerner had visited there in the past 15 years, nor was the monastery in possession of any documents having to do with the story Notovich had made public in his famous book. J. Archibald Douglas took it upon himself to make the journey to the Hemis Monastery to conduct a personal interview with the same head monk. What Douglas learned there concurred with what Mueller had learned. Notovich has never been there. This is from Bradley Mavoskasi. Some recent developments in Hindu understandings of Jesus in the Journal of Hindu Christian Studies, Volume 23, Article 5.
Peer reviewed.
Yes. But let's talk to our good agnostic leaning atheist friend, Bart Ehrman.
Bart.
What does he say about this? MJ, if you could be so kind.
In 1894, an English woman who had read The Unknown Life visited Hemis Monastery. She made inquiries and learned that no Russian had ever been there. No one had been nursed back to health after breaking his leg, and they had no books describing the life of Isa. The next year, a scholar, J. Archibald Douglas, went and interviewed the abbot himself, who informed him that there had been no European with a broken leg in the monastery during his 15 years in charge of the community.
Continue, please.
Moreover, he had been a lama for 42 years and was well acquainted with the Buddhist literature. Not only did he never read aloud a book about Isa to a European or anyone else, but he was also certain that no such book as The Unknown Life existed in Tibet. Further, internal implausibilities and inaccuracies of the story are exposed by both Godspeed and Beskow. Today there is a lot. Today there is not a recognized scholar on the planet who has any doubts about the matter. The entire story was invented by Notovich, who earned a good deal of money, that's that capitalism, and a substantial amount of notoriety for his hoax.
Again, not a Christian apologist saying this. Not a Christian. Just an atheist.
Yeah.
Says that this never happened. He's corroborating what we've learned from Ultra Bowl. This other lady went and found out too. So, I mean, the Holy 12 was some vegetarian propaganda. This was a lie as well. Thoth the Atlantean can't exist because there is no Atlantis. And the guy who wrote it translate, it's a mess. It's a mess.
Oh,
So
Jesus.
yeah, and that's about it. That's the moral of the story. So notice we couldn't even get into the comparisons with Jesus and Thoth. How can you?
Well, and Phyllis, if Adam Coleman was here, I would imagine that he would point out that what you have done is undercut all of Billy Carson's evidence. Like, he doesn't even have a leg to stand on. In terms of evidence, it's not evidence. There's none.
Right.
His argument doesn't get off the ground.
I'm assuming because BK, I'm not gonna say your age, but I know you're just a few years older than me. I don't know how old my brother is, but hopefully the audience is familiar with Love Jones, so I don't seem like an old man. But you remember that line in Love Jones where my man say, "Let me break it down so it can forever and completely be broke."
Mm.
I think that's what you just did to Billy Carson.
Wow, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, man. I mean, it's again, we can't even get into his argument because his argument. Remember, his thing was Jesus and Thoth is basically the same person. That Jesus just took everything, but from where? From where? From this particular Thoth, from Atlantis, from a place that was nothing more than a rhetorical device from a Greek philosopher. I mean, Thoth never, he didn't make the Great Pyramid. He's definitely in the book, the Perp Heru. He's in the Book of the Dead, but not as no builder of no pyramid. Then you want to go to the Book of the Holy 12 that you're saying was omitted from the Bible when this guy had a vegetarian axe to grind. It's propaganda. And then you want to talk about, Jesus in Tibet. They went to the monastery, fam. They talked to the dude that you said you talked to. And he's like, nah, fam. Nah, we don't know who you're talking about. So I'm saying it's like, and then, these people aren't believers. These are historians. Bart Ehrman is definitely not a Christian. He has no horse in the race. So, and again, a little bit of research, it's like you can't just believe everything you see on Al Gore's internet. You just can't. A little vetting, a little Googling here and there, you'd be surprised what you could cover. So, MJ, yes, you want to say something? You're muted.
I'm just thinking about your methodology, how you maybe one day you can give a little master class on debunking this type of stuff. Because if I can just think through what happened is, number one, check the dates. Check the dates on everything. And so when we start looking at the dates, we start seeing that this stuff was written at a time when, you got the Civil War over here in America, white folks losing their mind because slavery's ending. No offense to the white folks in the crowd. I'm just saying that's when you start to see all of the cults just start. You see all of the Christian cults breaking out, and you also see with the with the gypsies and kind of my Russian friends and stuff like they got their own esoteric thing going on.
Right.
That 19th century was something else.
Especially in New York, upstate New York, man. I don't know what was in the water, boy,
but I mean, like check the dates. I mean, there is a method that you use. One of these days, I'm gonna probably go back and review this video, and I'm gonna document what I think you did. But I mean, it never fails that there are anachronisms, and that what they is very silly.
Yeah,
it's silly.
Yeah.
God bless people who might be encountering some of this information. You just got to say, hey man, let's check the evidence. Let's try to have good reasons for what we believe.
Right.
And good reasons mean good evidence.
Yep.
So
Man,
jeez.
I think what it comes down to is people are really genuinely looking for explanations, and they looking for to have a genuine connection to God. But the problem is they don't want to admit or acknowledge the one true God. And so they rebelling against that while still trying to find an actual connection to the truth. And it's like the biggest oxymoron in the world right now. Like I hear people talking about praying to the universe, and the universe revealed this to me, and the ancestors, and I mean it's all kinds of substitutes for God that people come up with.
Right.
And it's really just an excuse not to acknowledge God. And so I feel like it's that scripture where it say every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. It's gonna come a time where all these substitutes is gonna have to be moved out of the way. As I always say, cream gonna rise to the top, and right. You're not gonna be able to deny what it is. But they come up with all of these different substitutes and these different angles to put in the place of God. They even
right.
talk about devils and demons and this and that, and then say the universe, or
right.
I'm fighting against this devil and this demon, but the ancestors. They ancestors though. Like what the? So I pray that people just stop running from the truth and stop dealing with substitutes and right. actually acknowledge what's right in front of their face.
Well, again, and I reference the scripture all the time when Paul was writing to Timothy. He says there will come a day when men would not put up with sound doctrine, but gather among them a great number of teachers to hear what their itching ears want to hear. You have plenty of people who are more than willing to scratch that itch. And Billy Carson is one of those people. So, and what we got to do is, when that happens, we got to inject ourselves and interrupt that kind of transmission to be like, hey, have you looked at this? Have you looked at that? Is what this man's saying really, is it really scratching your itch? You know what I mean? So, but with that being said, MJ, I'm going to give you the last word before we out of here, bro. Can you hear me, MJ?
I think he muted.
Yeah, I think you're muted. Or he's lagging, I think.
Yeah, I might have been lagging. I can hear you.
So final thoughts, sir.
I mean, we got to be vigilant. I think DMG kind of said we got to get on top of our game and be passionate about it. And we got to. I think one of the things that I observed in some of my Fort Worth churches is we were afraid to present this information to the people because we didn't believe they could handle it on the intellectual level. That's not our call to make. Jesus said that we should, worship God with all of our strength, all of our spirit, and all of our mind. And so we
Yep.
gotta start getting our minds engaged. And people want to learn. And if you don't teach them, you're gonna have a Billy Carson to deal with, because Billy don't mind sitting on his platform and saying, "Let me tell you what your pastor didn't tell you."
Yep.
He don't mind doing that, and that really that tickles the ear.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we just have to be vigilant. If I can echo my brother.
Amen. Amen. Facts upon facts. And with that being said, DMG, MJ, and BK signing off. Peace.